I'd like to bring this meeting to order of the Board of Education of Urbana School District 116. It's a business meeting, Tuesday, February 15th. Roll call, please.
Member Hasanatka.
Here.
Member Adolski.
Here.
Member Orr.
Here.
Member Hall is here. Vice President Exum.
Here.
And President Pulowski.
Here. Are there any additions, corrections, or modifications to tonight's agenda? No, hearing none. Citizen statements. We have one that was emailed in right before the wire. From Ruth Kantorowicz. Dear members of the board, as you may know, the Equity Task Force at their meeting on February 3rd wanted to reconsider Dr. Dubio's consulting firm for the equity audit. The Equity Task Force felt uncertain about the two consulting groups that were presented to the board on February 1st. The group from Chicago had no experience in equity audits, and Dr. Lewis's group was from out of state and only offered to perform quantitative data analysis. At that meeting, we were also informed that a group of experts from the University of Illinois has offered the district to conduct an equity audit for free. The UIUC group has access to any area of expertise contained in the private consulting firm's proposals presented so far, and much more. The UIUC team has resident experts in data science and operations research from the College of Engineering and Departments of Mathematics and Statistics, as well as support from the College of Education. We've learned at the meeting that the board rejected the offer from the university team, saying that the university people have kids in the district and are therefore biased, and that the university experts have no previous experience in equity audits. I find it hard to understand the district's argument against a collaboration with the university. Are we also going to disqualify the district's board members and administrators from making decisions if they have kids in the district? Is the board suggesting that the university experts that can train equity auditors are not experienced to do equity audits themselves? Given that university researchers are trained not to be biased in their research, one starts wondering if the administration is actually worried about what the data experts might discover. With Dr. Dubio and her one-size-fits-all audits, the outcome is predictable. It seems that what members of the administration really want is not an equity audit, but rather particular predetermined outcome and action plan, whether or not these actions will help in achieving the goals stated in the educational equity policy draft. In that case, why bother with the audit to begin with? You can save the trouble and jump right into the action plan. Sincerely, Ruth Kantorowicz. We do have one person present who would like to address the board, Christy Lee.
Okay. Good evening. I'm here tonight to comment about the presentations for the equity audit consultant and the board discussion that followed. I believe that both quantitative and qualitative information are critical. Qualitative conversations bring up questions that lead to quantitative data collection, which then leads to more qualitative conversations to uncover the why behind the numbers. Having an audit with a balance will be key to our success in creating a more equitable district. I would like to offer two examples of why we need both quantitative and qualitative information. Scenario one, a group of students with IEPs are enrolled in a general education class. The TA attends with them for support, and the special education teacher adapts their work and tests. The quantitative information and enrollment data shows that the students with IEPs are included in general education and that appropriate supports are being provided. However, if you were to look at the qualitative information, you would find that the students with IEPs are segregated in a corner of the classroom with the TA. The classroom teacher does not engage or interact with the students with IEPs. The classroom teacher does not contribute to any of the assignments or assessment adaptations made by the special education teacher. The classroom teacher does not look at the work completed by the students with IEPs. And the students with IEPs were not given the opportunity to present their end of semester project to the class. Instead, they presented at a different time to the special education teachers, and the classroom teacher never attended the presentations. If we were only to look at the quantitative information, we would see no reason to be concerned about equitable access for the students with IEPs. However, the qualitative information paints a very different picture and raises many concerns. Scenario number 2. A student with an IEP is enrolled in general education classes, has TA support, and is doing well with their adapted work. Again, the quantitative information shows that the student is included in general education with appropriate supports and is successful. The qualitative information, however, reveals that the student's family was told by school staff that they should not focus on academic learning, that their child did not belong in the general classroom, and that they should consider self-contained special education classes because that is what those kids do. The family had to jump through many hoops and get past many gatekeepers before their student was allowed access to the general education classes. Again, if we were only to look at the quantitative information, we would see no reason to be concerned about access for students with IEPs, and again, the qualitative information paints a different picture. It is my belief that in choosing the consultant for the equity audit, that we find someone that has a balance, both qualitative and quantitative information. I would also like to comment about the board discussion following the presentations at the February 1st meeting, specifically the comments that were made by member Ravi Hasanaka. Member Hasanaka commented that information from focus groups was okay, and that there were perhaps insights to be had, but that the people who attended these groups had chips on their shoulders and things to get out, leading to totally skewed and biased information. Like each of you, serving on the USD 116 Board of Education, families, teachers, staff, and community members volunteer their time and talent to serve on various committees, focus groups, and other engagement opportunities with USD 116. Qualitative conversations with a common goal to improve educational opportunities and outcomes for Urbana students. These are rich conversations because we all see things through different lenses and bring different perspectives to the table. The comments made by Ravi Hasanaka and the body language he exhibited are a slap in the face to those who take the time to be involved in these conversations and bring their perspective to the table. As school board members, you should welcome and embrace the unique perspectives our community has to offer. I sincerely hope the disrespect for the service others give to our district shown by member Hasanaka is not representative of the board as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Christy. Does anybody else wish to address the board tonight? All right, that's it for citizen statements. There is no call for executive session after tonight's meeting. Is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. No accommodations or recognitions or communications. Student ambassador report.
Last week, some UHS students and staff filmed a video showing how the new door detection system worked and how simple it should be. The video also showed what can and cannot be in a backpack. By the end of the week, this video had been sent out to all the teachers and students and had been posted on the main District 116 Instagram account. Today, the video was shown on a TV in the Commons area for every student to see while eating lunch. In Student Ambassadors news, we are interested in creating a Student Ambassador run Instagram account in order to have more direct communication with the student body. Finally, in sports news, the UHS tennis team has started practicing last week, and the UHS Winter Guard placed 5th in their state competition last week.
All right, thank you very much, Parker. First up is administrative reports. Update on the TRO.
Okay. So I have the pleasure of updating the board. This is our first opportunity to really kind of talk about this in public. I know it has been playing out around us in our county and in our region, but it is our first opportunity as a group to discuss this. I know we've shared communications out with parents, so I'm sure there's still a lot of our public and our families that are trying to figure out what this all means. I do need to say to the board that I went to every school after the changes. Last week we started hearing about other districts that were starting to go mask optional, and I visited a couple of the buildings, especially our high school and our middle school, which is where, you know, I was most concerned. And honestly, I saw no difference. So our staff are completely on board and masking. We had no student issues. We continue to have no student issues with masking. So we'll get into the administrative recommendation, but I just wanted to kind of share that positive update that I know, you know, it has not been as positive of an experience in other districts. But in our community, in our city, in our area here, Champaign-Urbana, people are still wearing the masks, and it hasn't been a negative experience thus far, and it continues to be that way. So I just wanted to kind of say that as we start talking about some of these legal things that are going on. So what is the temporary restraining order, so the TRO, what is that? So an Illinois Circuit Court, basically in Sangamon County, which is in the southern part of Illinois, a judge there issued a temporary restraining order enjoining the state, so basically IDPH, Illinois Department of Public Health, ISB, Illinois State Board of Education, from enforcing the governor's executive orders and all of the emergency rules and regulations put forth that we have been following since the very beginning of the pandemic, and as each executive order has kind of been released. So our district has been in the forefront of following those mandates, and we have not had major issues enforcing those. Our teachers have been supportive of that, and thus far, so have our students and families. So the order also enjoined the named school defendants from enforcing the IDPH and ISBE emergency regulations and rules. That group includes approximately 150 of Illinois' 840 school districts, and about 700 parents are parties to the consolidated lawsuit. So there are a couple of districts around us that are actually part of this consolidated lawsuit. And the lawsuit actually includes student names. So in every district or particular schools, there are students who are actually named, or families or parents that are actually named as part of this consolidated lawsuit. We'll talk about this further in a minute, but Urbana is not a named district in the lawsuit. So the named defendants are temporarily restrained from enforcement of the following executive orders. So basically Executive Order 18, which requires indoor masking in schools, Executive Order 24 and Executive Order 25, which puts in very specific exclusions for close contacts and contact tracing, and then all of the emergency rules issued by IDPH and ISB, which there are rules about vaccination status for people who are working in schools, and there are rules for testing, mandatory COVID testing for those that are unvaccinated, that are also part of this. So basically, this TRO orders those districts that are named in the suit, they're no longer required to use masks for students and teachers, except during the order of quarantine from a local health department. So that first bullet means this only applies to non-positive asymptomatic students. So just so you guys are aware, the districts around us that have gone mask optional, they are still required to quarantine students that test positive when they know about it. School districts are no longer required to make unvaccinated people test weekly or collect those weekly negative test results. They're also no longer required to refuse schools for teachers and students that are deemed close contacts to be placed in quarantine or isolation. Oops. There we go. Make sure I didn't skip one here real quick, sorry. All right, so timeline. So the TRO was actually filed, of course, at the end of the day on Friday, which has unfortunately been the norm for a lot of our mandates and news and legal things that have happened. It seems to typically happen on a Friday at the end of the day. So many superintendents and attorneys and school district leaders spent their weekend kind of combing through this document and trying to figure out what it all means for their school districts. That was Friday, February 4th. The Attorney General filed a motion for stay with that particular judge the very next day. The Attorney General has also filed an appeal. Currently, we are waiting for the appellate court to either do two things: stay the TRO, which means if it is stayed by the judge, it'll be like it never happened, or make a decision on appeal on the merits of the TRO. I'm not going to walk through the TRO. It is a really long document, but basically the slides that I've shared with you are basically the meat of it. Whether or not districts can mask, whether or not districts should quarantine close contacts, and then require vaccination and testing. So I was really hoping prior to this meeting that we'd have a decision from the appellate court. We currently don't. The deadline for them to respond is Thursday, February 17th. So I'm hoping we get something before then, but it may be Thursday, February 17th, when we'll be back trying to have more conversations about this. Today, I don't know if you saw on social media or there were some media outlets in our area that ran a story about a ruling from the Joint Commission on Administrative Rules, basically called JCAR. JCAR is a legislative committee that approves the regulations for state agencies. So in this case, ISB and IDPH. So Tuesday, today, JCAR voted against extending the Illinois Department of Public Health's request to extend their 150-day emergency rules on schools' mask mandates. So I'm not quite sure why. Our attorneys, I talked with them before this meeting. No one understands why Illinois Department of Public Health had not put forth their requests for the emergency rules prior to this, the formal rulemaking process. For some reason, they had not done that. ISB has done that, and their rules are being considered through this really extensive formal rulemaking process that happens with JCAR. Illinois Department of Public Health just put forth their requests for that formal rule to make those emergency rules permanent. And what JCAR did today was basically vote against that because of the TRO. So because the decision right now is in the hands of the appellate court, they felt like it, IDPH kind of missed their window of opportunity to say, we want these rules to be permanent. So basically, it's too late to do that because now the decision is at the court level. So it isn't up to JCAR at this point. So today's decision with the JCAR basically doesn't change anything for us. We still need to wait for the appellate court decision because ISB's emergency rules for masking, excluding close contacts, vaccination, and testing are in the formal rulemaking process. So those are still in place and again, are still in the process of being considered permanent. It's hard to tell when that will happen because that is a pretty lengthy process. The other reason why we're still waiting for the appellate court decision is because the governor's executive orders were extended on February 4th for 30 days. Because we are a non-named district, we at this time are still following the governor's executive orders as well as ISB's emergency rules for all the mitigation measures. So basically, as I've mentioned, we are a non-named district, so we are not named in the consolidated lawsuit. So our recommendation, here we're going to talk about that in a second, stems from the items here that are really important to us, that I think the board needs to be aware of these. We have a board policy for mask requirement. We put forth a requirement for face masks early in 2020 when this started. The board approved it, so it is part of our policy. If we were to move to a mask optional district, we'd have to talk about what would happen with that policy. We are also under an agreement and memorandum of understanding with our Urbana Education Association, basically with our union. Any changes outside of our memorandum of agreement with the union would have to be noticed and bargained. We'd have to get the attorneys involved, and we'd have to impact the bargain of the working conditions with our association. So those are important things I just wanted the board to be aware of. So the TRO actually allows local control and authority for non-named districts. So we do have some independent authority to continue to make our own decisions because we were not named in the lawsuit. I know a lot of districts around us have made the choice to go mask optional, and they were not part of the lawsuit, and the reason they're able to do that is because the judge did insert a couple of small footnotes in there allowing independent authority and local control for districts that are not part of the suit. So our recommendation, based on our commitment as a district, as an administration, our teachers union, I've met with our union, we've had conversations about this as well. So right now it is our stance that in order to maintain a safe and healthy learning environment for our students and our staff, to minimize learning disruptions at all of our schools, we recommend that the district and the board maintain our current COVID-19 mitigation measures and protocols that we already have in place, that we've been following all year, and we would like to continue to follow those. So the board may be asking, you know, what would it look like, or what would it mean for us as a district or as a board if there were members of the board who did want to consider moving away from the mandates and the mitigation measures. So the left side of the slide basically speaks to our students. So I'm sure the board members are aware, we will have parents and guardians who will refuse to send their students to school if we unmask. Our community is very different. I think we have been very supportive of masks from the very beginning. That doesn't mean that we don't have families who would be, want to encourage this, but in terms of it being the majority of our population, the majority of our school community, that is not the case. We have an obligation to our students with disabilities and documented health conditions to provide them with reasonable accommodations. So we know we have students who have a difficulty wearing masks, yes, but we also have students who their health and wellness depend on the people around them wearing masks. So we would, as a district, have to think about what would be some accommodations that we would have to put in place for students with IEPs and 504 plans. Things like, you know, if the teacher did not want to wear their mask, if we were mask optional, we might have to have a meeting and say to the teacher, we really would like you to wear your mask, encourage everybody in the space with the students to wear their masks, increase the social distancing if students around these students weren't wearing the mask. So we'd have to think of some other creative ways that we would accommodate for our students with documented health conditions. I sat in several Zooms over the weekend with several attorneys, and I get there are some OCR. I should have explained that acronym. So the Office of Civil Rights, which is kind of a federal governing board, where parents can, if they have kind of like lawsuits, right? They can go to the Office of Civil Rights and say, our district is doing this and I don't agree with it, and then it becomes a long drawn out decision and case. So there are some OCR cases right now that are currently pending in the courts and with the OCR system for students that are medically compromised and those that are at risk for serious injury due to COVID. So we know we have some students who also would fall in this category. And if we were to go mask optional, we would have to consider full remote learning for those students because they would not be able to be in school with everyone around them unmasked. So as a district, we don't have a full remote learning option, so we'd have to really think about who would be providing that full remote instruction, and what that might look like for those students. So if we were to go mask optional, staff-wise, there's some things the district would have to consider. We will have staff that will refuse to come to work due to safety concerns for their own health and the health of those in their immediate families or in their immediate households. We have an obligation to our staff to provide reasonable accommodations for those with disabilities and documented medical conditions. We all experienced the high number of our staff members who worked remotely and needed to work remotely because of medical needs. So I would expect, and I had a conversation with Angie and I have talked about this, our attorneys are aware that if we were to go mask optional, we will have staff members that will be unable to be in person. And we'll have to work out accommodations for them, like increased social distancing, stricter masks, mitigations in the classes where they're teaching. So those are just a few. Of course, I'm not encouraging these, but I just wanted the board to be aware that if we were to move to a more masks recommended, masks strongly encouraged, masks optional environment, these would all be things that would impact us as a district. And that is it. So I would love, at this point, I know we usually discuss, ask questions, share thoughts. So while you're sharing your thoughts, I think this would be a good opportunity for each board member to share where you fall in terms of your thoughts on the administrative recommendation for us to continue to mask and follow the mitigation measures that we've been following all year.
I mean, this is like the easiest answer for me, but 100% maintain all safety measures we have in place. I kind of can't imagine another scenario right now. I don't think we're anywhere near stable footing as far as what we know about COVID or what can happen in 2 months. I mean, I sort of just imagined we're looking at a school year. So until the school year is over, I can't really imagine having a conversation about alternatives.
Thank you, Laura.
So if we're going around the table. Boy, sorry. Like Laura, I've always supported the administration's recommendations for masking at this district. I think you guys have been playing it very safe and to the best outcomes so far. I've seen that I'm really proud of what we've done so far with keeping people safe. I don't want to go back on any of that unless we absolutely have to by the courts. And I'm also assuming that because you've been in touch with the Champaign Public Health Department all this time, that they would probably support the same recommendation. So, and not to mention the fact that I'm sure that our teachers union would have serious problems with our collective bargaining about this. It just seems an absolute no-brainer that we continue. I want what's best for the kids and the teachers and the families, and this is obvious to me. So please keep doing what you're doing. Thank you.
I share the same sentiments and don't need to repeat the same things that have already been said.
Yep.
I support keeping everything in place as it is.
Agreed. One thing I do think is worth at least saying out loud is it is likely, of course, that there will be some amount of pushback that we may or may not get in the community, and just having a plan in place for how we're going to deal with sort of the opposite of lawsuits related to you know, what we're doing now. But I absolutely support what the administration's doing, and most importantly, while we're dealing with staffing issues, I think that protecting the teachers and what I generally hear they want should be very, very high on our list of what we do. But to the degree to which we know what may, just being prepared for what
Sure.
may come in front of us seems important.
And I can speak to that after Rob
Okay.
weighs in.
I was just going to say that masking needs to continue to happen, not just to the end of the school year, but until COVID is considered endemic. And who knows when that is, but it's not necessarily May 20th. It might be a year from now. So you have to mask until it's endemic.
It is a part of our world for some time to come. That is true. So I've talked with our attorneys. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate the support, and I appreciate you kind of publicly sharing your thoughts. I think that's important. I have talked to our attorneys about what our plan B might be and when everything plays out. So if the appellate court stays or if they uphold the judge's decision, again, as a non-named district, we're allowed to continue in doing what we're doing, and there's no reason why we shouldn't. As we know, last week, Governor Pritzker did come out publicly and say that after February 28th, he will be lifting the indoor mask, public mask mandate, and they're forthcoming. There would be a time later when that would also be lifted for schools. In my discussions with our attorneys, of course, as a district, we have local control. I can't imagine that, ISB is going to sweep in now and say, well, you have to go mask optional. That's not going to happen. What will happen is we will have to have another conversation like this publicly for our stakeholders and for the community to weigh in on what we are going to do. Once the governor and the executive orders are withdrawn and all those emergency mitigation measures and rules are no longer in place, as a district, we still have the opportunity and the control and local control and authority to be able to continue to mask. Again, we have a MOU, we have, with our union, we have a board policy already in place. We would probably do more, like I have not surveyed staff, we've not surveyed students at this point. It is just what we have been doing as a district. It is just part of what we're doing, hopefully, for the rest of the year. And until we hear pushback, like you said, we may have, I do get emails from parents asking when we're going to go mask optional as a district. So those will be discussions we'll have to have later. But our attorneys have assured me that we would just have to draw up, continued language saying this is what we're going to do. I don't foresee us getting any pushback from our staff around masking. We may have to have conversations about the weekly testing for unvaccinated staff. We have about 67 people who test weekly that are unvaccinated now. And once that requirement is gone through an executive order or through those rules, we may not be able to require those people to do that anymore. Hopefully, it is such a routine now for them, and we even go the extra mile. The requirement is weekly testing, but our people test twice a week, and we have opportunities basically in every school where they can test twice a week and upload their results. So we've made it very convenient. So my hope is our staff members will continue to just maintain status quo and keep testing throughout the rest of this year. But that may be a conversation we have to go back to the union and have a conversation about our unvaccinated people and requiring them the weekly test. But I don't foresee masks being something that we would, as a district, recommend that we move away from, or currently our union leadership has indicated that they are support of us continuing, and now we have board support to do that as well. So we'll have to stay tuned and see what happens in the weeks to come. So,
And board members, ambassadors, any further questions?
students, you guys have any comments you want to make? I know we didn't talk about this, but you don't have to.
Yeah, I fully support wearing masks. I think it's very important.
Thanks, Michael.
I had a couple questions about
Sure.
just getting into the weeds when I was trying to understand everything that you were explaining. The deadline is Thursday for the appellate court to make a decision. Are
Yes.
they within their rights then to just kick the can down the road on that day? I mean, is it a yes or no thing, or is it
Yeah,
a maybe also?
they have to make a
they can-
decision. They either have to stay it, which sets the TRO aside, or they have to weigh in on the merits and say, we believe this stands, and then it would repeal all of the executive orders and the mitigation measures for the districts that are named in the lawsuit.
Oh my gosh, okay.
I foresee that if it is stayed, then the attorney who, Mr. DeVore, who filed the suit, will appeal it, and it'll just kind of continue to
Keep going.
continue. So it will get kicked further down, but maybe not by the appellate court, but by the people that are involved in the
Lower
lawsuit.
courts, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, and also, I was just trying to understand, because there was a lot there, the JCAR
Yes.
legislative committee, is that something that's made up of our state senators and
Yes,
congresspeople?
it is
And
our-
I'm
it is
asking
a
for myself,
legis-
but also I
yes.
assume listeners might know.
Yes, it is a legislative body, yes.
And so could you go back again, please, and just repeat what you'd said about what the Illinois Department of Public Health did or didn't do in that movement? I was moving
Sure.
fast in my brain.
So, here, let me get my computer shut on me. I want to pull that page up. Okay. So, basically, the emergency rules that were put forth by ISB and IDPH were for 150 days.
Right, okay.
So, earlier in the process of this, ISB put forth a recommendation to the Joint Commission on Administrative Rules to make their mitigation measures for masking, close contacts, vaccination and testing permanent rules, that those are no longer emergency rules for the 150 days, but that they would be permanent rules for the school year. I'm not quite sure why, but the Illinois Department of Public Health did not do that. So
Okay.
their 150 days has run out. So the 150 days are over. So they recently, after the TRO ruling, put in a request to extend so this was IDPH, put in a request to extend their 150 day emergency rules and make them permanent. And again, the ISB decision has not even been made. So ISB put it in, I don't know exactly when, but I talked to our attorney today, and he basically said it will be weeks, months and months and months before it is a final ruling. But what JCAR did today was they didn't even put it into the formal rulemaking process. They basically kicked it out and said, sorry, because the TRO has already been, the temporary restraining order has already been in place. We're not even going to hear this. We're not going to consider it. We're not putting it into our formal process, and basically rejected it because we're in the middle of a court. It's now at the court level.
Right.
So.
And so with the governor's executive order, I know that I've heard this on the radio and things, that it doesn't apply to schools, but really, are there people trying to argue that that could be, that an end run could be done round in some way? And
Sure.
considering schools places of employment are not, public, as the same as a movie theater or something, I don't know. I was just trying to think out all the different ways that people could mess with that
So the
executive order.
executive orders, the governor typically renews those every 30 days. So just like the executive order that's in place to allow us to have people Zoom in, every 30 days, those orders are renewed. So at the beginning of February, the executive orders were renewed. I'm not quite sure what will happen for March, since the governor has already said he's lifting that mandate for indoor spaces. I don't know if he'll put forth a date, soon to say at the end of March, I won't renew that for schools. We're not sure, but the practice has been every 30 days that those orders are renewed.
Thank you. It was for
Yeah.
myself as much as
Good
for
question.
maybe anybody
Yeah,
who could potentially
absolutely.
be confused in the audience.
Right, anyone else have any comments or
Questions?
questions? All right,
Okay,
thank you so much.
thank you.
We have our action items on the consent agenda, starting with our minutes from the January 18th business meeting, January 31st special meeting, February 1st, study session. February 3rd, Equity Task Force Committee meeting. February 8th, BOE UEA roundtable, and the February 10th special meeting. We have bills and checks. Ed fund for $864,000. O&M fund bills for $264,000. Bond and interest fund bills for $901. Transportation fund bills for $370,000. Working cash bonds for $48,000. Tort for $74,000. Payroll, salary, and benefits for $4.494 million. And the Urbana Adult Education has a bill for $189,284.16. Also in our packets was a list of personnel items and approval of an administrative personnel item as well in 11.4. 11.5 is a resolution authorizing and directing the sale or disposal of personal property. And one more is there's a resolution authorizing the appointment of Joanna Davison as the Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund authorized agent for the district. Does anybody wish to move any of these particular items off the consent agenda? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Member Hasanadka?
Yes.
Member Agolsky?
Yes.
Member Orr?
Yes.
Member Hall votes yes. Vice President Exum?
Yes.
And President Pulaski?
Yes. 12.1 are our gifts. And Frechtel donated $25 to Yankee Ridge Elementary in memory of Thomas Proctor. Bishop and Dr. Underwood donated $100 to the Evelyn Burnett Underwood Music Assistance Fund at Urbana Middle School. Is there a motion to accept the gifts and send out thank yous?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There is a call for a future special executive meetings. February 16th is our district parent-teacher advisory committee meeting. Superintendent's report.
So, I'll let Mike play this video in just a second. So beginning this Thursday, all students and staff and visitors and guests to Urbana High School will walk through the new OpenGate safety detectors when entering the building. We have a little video here where we have been, Parker referred to the video, where we wanted to show students the kind of pass-through that we've created for the Chromebooks. As if you remember, John at one of our meetings talked about there is a kind of a metal bar in the hinge of the Chromebooks that a lot of these systems detect looking like a barrel of a weapon. So it dings on any, not just a Chromebook, but any laptop device that you walk through. So we'll show you that video. Tomorrow night, we will be having a demo night at Urbana High School, so I'd encourage board members to come. We've invited students, teachers to just come and try out the systems in person, and then we'll have those up and ready to go on Thursday. So let's show the video. Thanks, Mike.
Starting on February 17th, we'll be implementing a new OpenGate threat detection system at Urbana High School. This system is designed to detect threats entering the school without detecting items like keys, phones, belts, earrings, and other metal. Because of the design of Chromebooks, we will implement a Chromebook laptop pass-around for students and staff entering the building. If the detector alarms, staff and students will proceed to a secondary screening where the source of the alarm will be determined. We look forward to getting these set up in our schools and the extra safety and security they'll bring.
So, in reading the student surveys, and, you know, we had, I can't remember, 350 oddish students who responded. We felt like having a video was really important because a lot of the students, I don't think, really understood, and, you know, a lot of their comments were, you know, I hope I don't have to take off my earrings every time I walk through, and, you know, I'm hoping, you know, my pin and my belt buckle and things like that are not going, you know, they were just envisioning this was going to be like a huge, you know, process in like going through the airport or going someplace where you're having to take off all these items every time you walk into the building. So we really just wanted them to see hope it won't be that way. You know, yes, I think it'll take a few days for everyone to get used to having their Chromebook or their laptop out as they walk into the door. But again, that should just take a few days for people to get used to. So we're having some training. The presenter who was here and presented to the board is going to be back in town with us for a couple days. So he'll be spending some time at the high school tomorrow. He'll be at the demo. But he will also be working with our student relations supervisors and other people who will be at these stations, kind of training them on what to look for and what the secondary screening process will, what that will be like.
Starting on
Oops, sorry. Booster clinic reminder, we have about 100 people signed up to get their booster shot on Thursday from 3:30 to 6. I'm hoping the ice stays away until we can all get home that evening and people are still able to come out and keep their appointments that they've set. So again, kudos to CU Public Health for working with us and getting us everything that we need, and our nurses for signing up to work until 6 o'clock on Thursday. Winter Institute is this Friday. So just prior to our meeting, I shared the Google site for the Winter Institute sessions. So right now, you can go in and preview if you have sessions that you're interested in. Remember, it's all virtual this year. Our keynote speaker is Kenneth Williams from Unfold the Soul. He is a equity speaker, administrator. He's very entertaining, so we're really looking forward to him joining us. So if you're available at the beginning of the day at 8:30, you can hop in and hear his keynote. We have some other really well-known featured speakers, Principal Baruti Kafele, who's written several books about the principalship and equity, Dr. Jose Medina, and Rick Romelli from Standards-Based Grading. So go in, play around on the site, choose some sessions, and the live links will be added on Thursday. Just a reminder to families, Tuesday, February 22nd is an e-learning day, asynchronous work for students. As we have in the past, we will have meals available for families. They just need to call. The number on the flyer, will circulate the flyer around some more this week. And those meals can be picked up from 8:30 to 10:30 on Tuesday morning. UHS wrestling, we have a state qualifier. So Cordero Sims took 3rd place in sectionals over the weekend and advances to the state qualifying meets this weekend, later this week, sorry. Congratulations to Cordero. Winter Guard. Parker mentioned our Winter Guard. We're always so proud of our Winter Guard. They just really represent us every year. So this year, the Lyrical Flag routine placed 5th at the Illinois Drill Team Association state finals over this weekend. I think the captain, Isabella Brown, her solo placed 9th, and we had several team members that were recognized as IHSA Scholar Athletes. So congratulations on a great season to the Winter Guard. 5 Essential Survey is still open, so we're starting to see our rates increase for parents, and we encourage you, if you've not followed the link, you can get to that through our website, through some of the superintendent updates, through board updates. We have to have a certain percentage rate in order for us to get data, and that data is reflected on every school's school report card. So we really encourage you to go in and share it's your opportunity to kind of share your thoughts on the important elements of what we're doing well in our schools. So that is open through March 4th. And so we've kind of talked, this is one of those long weekends. So Winter Institute is Friday, no school for students. President's Day, no school for students on Monday, and then Tuesday is an asynchronous learning day. We do have a couple of FOIAs as well. Yuli Barishnikov, data, administrator salaries, any retirement enhancements, additional benefits. These have all been completed and fulfilled too. I should have said that. Yuli Barishnikov, information related to whether the Board of Education was informed about discrepancies in the EIS report. Illinois Retired Teachers Association, name and email address of any certified staff who are retiring this year. Yuli Barishnikov, names of the companies you selected in your communication with the members of the Equity Task Force pertaining to this matter. Smart Procure, contact information for all current employees and staff. And again, we redact quite a bit of that information when we get those requests about employee data and info.
Board reports. Any board reports? I have one. I had the pleasure of speaking on the phone today with former President Dimmitt, who seems to be recovering quite well from his open heart surgery. Wanting to pass along his best wishes to all of you, along with the fact that he says he's very thankful he's not on the board any longer and dealing with the stress of a lot of things, but he is still very anxious about serving on our property committee and wanted to talk about our next meeting. So best wishes to him. Any other board reports? Hearing none, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.